I'll start with Rusty and tell me how young you were when you first were driving a car even or a go-kart and you said, you know what, man, I wouldn't mind making a living doing this.
Well, I started out, driving these cars back in St. Louis when I was about 14 years old. 15, a lot of stuff going on there. But my very first official race was the day I turned 16 years old. I remember my dad and mom had to go to the court and get a court order, waiving all the, making sure that the racetrack was clear of anything that might go wrong if I had a wreck or something. So they let me on the track at age 16. You were supposed to be 18, but it got cleared, and that was it. That was the start of my career right then.
And Kenny, you were how old then? Do you remember going and watching Rusty?
Well, I spent a lot of years early in my life helping Rusty. I'm not just Rusty's little brother, but I'm a big fan of Rusty. So I didn't start racing until I was 22. And but my very first race was 1982, Illinois Street Stock State Championship in Springfield. And then I didn't race for a while, spent my time, always helping Rusty or my brother Mike or my dad. And so, yeah, that's when it all started here in St. Louis.
And did you show up, Kenny, and say, hey, I'm Rusty's little brother. Did you wear that like a badge of honor when you go to a track?
Absolutely. Yes. Hey, I'm 57 years old right now, and I'm proud of Rusty, proud of Mike. But Rusty, he was the risk taker of the family. We came out of St. Louis and, we'd go across that Poplar Street Bridge, head up 55 North, and Rusty would race against the great A.J. Foyt in a great series called USAC up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'll never forget bringing back those trophies to Valley Park, Missouri. And, I tagged Rusty's coattails my whole early life. And it turned out really good.
And Rusty, you were having a great career, but when you win the Cup title in '89, how much does that change your whole life?
That pretty well validated everything I wanted to do. I mean, I did a lot of short track racing. I grew up in St. Louis. Our shop was down in Valley Park. We lived over in Fenton. And, but I was always on the road, always gone all the time. That was kind of like my base camp back in Missouri. But I felt as though that I needed to build my name and I had to get my name out there all over the place. And so that's what I did. I was in Bakersfield, California, Jackson, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was everywhere. And then one day something clicked and I said, look, I have got to slow down and quit going all over the place. And that was the time that I said, I'm going to try to win the American Speed Association Championship. And that was the biggest short track series back there then. So I did it. In 1983, I won it. And right away, I got a phone call in 1984. Come down to NASCAR, give you a shot. Raced for a couple years for Gatorade. Everything went pretty good. And then I got the big shot to go with the guys, Raymond Beadle out of Dallas, Texas, and drive the car. And then we won the title in '89. And after all that stuff I went through, when I finally won that title in '89, it was just, my gosh, I finally made it. And I'm officially making a living at this deal. Although that's before I was relying on that money from those short tracks to keep on going. But I was making a real legitimate living then after I won that '89 championship. That really set me on top.
Do you guys think that NASCAR is sort of shifting back to its roots? Like you see in the dirt stuff and the shorter track. Is there kind of a movement right now? And Kenny, you're out there still racing. Do you think NASCAR is trying to get back to their roots?
I do. I really do. Steve Phelps, who runs NASCAR right now, he came out in the middle of the winter and said, listen, we made a mistake. We're trying to make it right. And it's no secret that NASCAR is down some 60%. We used to go to the Brickyard and there would be 300,000 people. And I believe a couple years ago, we only had 40,000 people in the grandstand. So you see NASCAR running dirt at Bristol. They're really, really changing it up. They're adding on a lot of road courses in Texas at Circuit of America. I never thought I'd see that happen. That's the same track that Formula One races on. I mean, I really think NASCAR's trying to make it right and gain some of those fans back that they lost, some 15, 20 years ago.
I personally think that that's one way to put it. And I agree with what Kenny's saying, but I also think that they really feel as though they got to change something. They got to change it up to try to appeal to the masses. And television has a bit to do with that also. And then they're really researching ideas. I mean, who would ever think that, when you were growing up, you were on the dirt tracks and you're thinking, I want to make it big time. I want to make it to NASCAR. And you get to NASCAR and it's all the big oval tracks. It's Daytona and Talladega and Charlotte and all the places you dreamed of going. And now, because of COVID and different reasons, let's focus on two of them. COVID, number one, really killed everything last year. Before that, we had issues with people retiring. I retired. Dale Earnhardt lost his life. The Labanis retired. Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart. The list goes on and on. So a lot of people's, their driver that these fans would pull for are gone. They're retired. And so they're really soul searching who they want to pull for, who can fulfill that void. And it's been a real hard deal. And now you got Chase Elliott coming on and people are starting to sign on to him. You got Ryan Blaney coming on. They're finally starting to sign on to him. And the race fan is finally starting to find a new hero to pull for. And that's really, really helping. Just about the time we had momentum going there, then COVID hits and slows it back down again. But the fans, every time they open the track up for, 30% of capacity, they sell it out. They sell all 30%. So it's on a climb. I think that the dirt track thing at Bristol was a neat deal. One thing that kind of made that popular is a lot of the drivers, like the Kyle Larsons and Kenny knows more about their background.
Yeah, Christopher Bell.
Yeah, Christopher Bell. That's one of them. A lot of those guys come from dirt, so they're really, really promoted. They love having that dirt race at Bristol, and they were really pushing to get that. So that was a good popular thing. It worked out great for the racetrack. As I'm doing this interview, they're still up there racing. They got a huge race this weekend up there for World of Outlaws, and that doggone the dirt is still on the track, and it's going to stay on the track for a long time probably before the night race happens at Bristol. But they're trying everything they can to make everybody happy and build that sport back like it used to be. Look, do you think there's going to be 158,000 people like it used to be show up at Bristol? I don't know if they'll ever get that back or not. I'll never forget the last year I raced 2005 at Bristol. We had 158,000 people sitting at grandstand, and every single race was sold out. But then after that, everybody started retiring, and it really slowed that stuff down.
I feel like people really enjoyed rivalries too. I mean, not that you got to punch somebody like a Cale Yarborough would do, but who was it? The Cardinals and Cubs. You got these, rivalries sell. How about for you, Rusty, and then you, Kenny? Who was your rival? Was there a driver you just hated? And if you could put him into the wall, damn it, you would.
I had kind of a weird deal. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was a rival of mine, but he was a great friend of mine. So much so that we did some vacationing together, and our wives and everybody got along great and all that. But boy, when it come race time and the race would start, we're like, you couldn't tell we were friends. I mean, he was trying to steal my money. I was trying to steal his money. And then late in my career, Jeff Gordon came on, and he started to be just a real thorn in my side. He was so good that I'd be leading these races, and he'd pass me with 10 laps to go. I'll never forget, I'm in the big all-star race in Charlotte, run along. It was like 8 laps to go, and I'm leading the race. And I did right side tires, probably should have did 4. He did 4, drove right past me. And I'm like, can you believe it? This kid's got my money again. and it was always big money. It was big races. It was $1 million to win and things like that. And he got to be a real pain in my butt for a long time. Now he's doing television for Fox. We've hung out a little bit together. We get along great right now. We get along real good. So we get along good because we're not racing against each other any longer. And we can reminisce about the way it used to be and what we did before. And we get along great now.
Martin, one thing I'd like to add to that is that, when we say back in the day, 15, 20 years ago, there's no doubt there was characters. My brother Rusty, I love him dearly, but he was not afraid to say what he thought, and that's where I got a little bit of who I am. Rusty spoke his mind, and and so did Tony Stewart, and you had the late great Dale Sr. He was the Marlboro man. He was the man with the black hat on it. We had characters back then, and the fans really dug into that. And along come the TV deal where we had to clean our act up, and the characters are gone. And, Rusty and Dale Sr., they put on a hell of a show back then. The fans would rise to their feet to see, Big Brother and Senior go at it. So they need to, they clean the sport up a little bit too much, and that's my opinion.
Does it ever piss you guys off when they say, "Oh, you guys aren't athletes," but yet I don't ever see a fat I never see a fat guy driving a car. I mean, you guys are still in good shape, and it's funny. They're always like, "Oh, they're not athletes," and I'm like, "Did I see you guys now? Everyone's training, watching what they eat." And again, I mean, Tony Stewart was husky like a guy like me, but you never see an out of shape driver. What do you guys think about that debate?
Well, that for a while that used to aggravate me, and then I started thinking. I said, "Wait a minute! I don't care if I'm called an athlete or not. I'm a race car driver. I'm a professional race car driver. And when I think of athletes, I think of stick and ball. I don't think the word athlete attached to racing. A lot of people disagree with me because I lived the time when we'd get those questions. You guys aren't athletes. You aren't athletes. I went, well, okay. I'm a race car driver is what I am. And then I said, I can't hit the ball and you can't drive this car. That's for damn sure. And so then we get all the athletes would come to our races and they would just have such a great time, whether it's football, baseball, or singers or movie stars or whatever, they'd all be in the drivers meetings and they would just ooh and ah to be at a NASCAR race. And I got to tell you, when I get to go to a St. Louis Cardinals game, I'm the same way. I just love it, So that really never did bother me, the athlete thing. It didn't bother me. Maybe some other people it didn't me, though.
Yeah, Martin, it was Donovan McNabb with the Philadelphia Eagles that, he was working for Fox Sports for a little bit. And he said that one day on one of his pre-show, NFL games. And then, of course, we had a debate about it. Jimmy Johnson got involved in it. And, Jimmy Johnson, he was winning a lot of championships and a lot of races. And all of a sudden, Jimmy started that lifestyle of, hey, I'm going to work out. Now, listen, it might have made him feel a little bit better, but he didn't run any better. Let's make that, Rusty's automatically in shape, and so am I. So I'm with Rusty 110%. Everybody knows that, I was good friends with Albert Pujols, and of course he left St. Louis, and he would say to me, Albert Pujols would say, how do you drive that car 200 miles per hour? I'm like, Albert, how do you stand up in front of a standing room crowd and hit a damn home run? So it's two different disciplines.
How do you guys get in the car and go the speed limit? I've always wondered, it's got to be hard, to get in a normal car and just drive around. And your wife says, "Hey, will you run to the store?" You're like, "You damn right." Well, I'm going 90. Can you drive a normal car at a normal speed?
You can. I will tell you though, when people are thinking so hard about different things, whether you're thinking about your profession or, we're back here now. I'm doing the analytical work for the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR on radio. And so when I'm thinking about the race, I find myself going to the track and putting right along because it's not that I'm distracted, but I'm not in a big hurry because I'm focusing on things. Now, you get me going to the airport here at Charlotte Douglas Airport and I'm stuck in traffic and the flight leaves in 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm in a hurry. Maybe I'm going to press my luck a little bit on the speed limit. But when I was driving, just because I was always wanting to go fast in the race car didn't mean I wanted to go fast on the track. Now, I will tell you, I've had some hot rod cars, street cars. One of the first Corvettes, a 200-mile-an-hour car. You get in cars like that, they just want to go fast. I mean, you're sitting there, you feel like you're running 60, and you look down, you're running 95. You're going, oh, man, I better throttle back, Those cars just want to go, Like now I drive an SUV. And when I feel like I'm running 70, I look down, I'm running 70. I say, okay, it just kind of feels right.
Yeah, Martin, we would race in Bristol, Tennessee, about 3 hours from Charlotte. And of course, Rusty had his helicopter, but I would drive my vehicle up there. We'd get done with the race and we'd get on Interstate 81 and head back to Charlotte. And my wife would say, Kenny, slow down. I'm like, why? And I look down and I'm running 90, so you get out of those race cars and sometimes you feel like you're crawling in a passenger car.
You ever let anybody else drive?
Yeah, I let somebody else drive almost all the time. like especially when I'm at the racetrack, we had our motor coach there. And so Kenny's had different guys. I've had different guys help me drive these motor coaches. And so when you get there, you got a support vehicle. You got like an SUV or something that's getting you around all the drivers' meetings, the appearances from Miller Brewing Company or whoever your sponsors are. There's quite a bit of work going on at the racetrack. And so you'll get there in town, you'll stay in your motor coach, and who drove your motor coach will be with you all week long. So most of the time I just put them in there. I said, you drive, I'm just riding. Because a lot of times they'll do what they call a recon run. When they get there, they'll go where we're going to have these appearances, and they know how to get in the back door. They know the sideways to get in. They got that pre-planned. Everything's all done. Many, many times I just jump in that vehicle and we go through back roads and all kind of stuff, getting to these appearances. And I'm like, man, how'd you figure this out? He said, I pre-ran everything. And so the pre-runner driver drove me basically everywhere.
Kenny, what did you learn from Rusty? What great advice over the years, or watching him? What did you take from his skill set?
Yeah, on a very serious note, Rusty taught me a lot. There's a couple people taught me. It was always Rusty and then the great Dick Trickle. But Rusty taught me one of the most important lessons of my life. It's hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And that was the number one thing we learned. It's no secret that the great Bobby Allison was Rusty's hero. And, Bobby got hurt. And, and then the other one Rusty taught me was, save your money for a rainy day. We're Missouri boys. You'll never see our last dollar, so. And there's so much more that Rusty's taught me. A lot of it is what he's went through and he shared with me. And he knows how much I appreciate it.
Rusty, do you ever call him and say, "Oh, Kenny, get off Twitter," or did you ever tell him to calm down?
No, I actually don't. I enjoy watching him doing what he does. And of late, I've got myself involved in some really high-end custom-built motorcycles. And my son is building those things, and I really, really love that business. And it's got to be pretty exciting. And so we started a brand new company called Southern Country Customs. And we're building high-end, what they call bagger Harley Davidsons. And these are $70,000 to $90,000 motorcycles. And so we went to Daytona Bike Week, and I talked Kenny into coming with me. And I tell you what, he did a great job riding that motorcycle. He laughed like crazy. And the whole time he was there, he was tweeting and tweeting and tweeting, showing everybody what's going on. And the whole industry in NASCAR, they almost got jealous. Because
they did get jealous.
They got jealous. They really got jealous because what they're doing their 9-to-5 deal. They're going to work and they're going to that racetrack every single week, and they're doing the same thing repetitively all the time. And they got to see us having a great time and building this really exquisite, beautiful motorcycles. And they loved it. They really did. I was getting phone calls like crazy, from people. And then when it was all said and done in Bike Week, because of Kenny doing all the tweeting and all the stuff he did, we sold 5 extra motorcycles.
You keep on tweeting, Kenny. You sell. What? How about as a kid? He always says how hyper he was. Rusty, did you guys ever say, "Oh, Kenny, knock it off"? Do you have to lock him in his room or anything?
No. Kenny's got a distinct laugh that everybody can tell and pick up from anywhere, and that's his trademark. And they'll go, "Oh, that's Kenny."
Listen, I honestly, I was born this way. I don't mean any harm. I'm going to be the first person down at Busch Stadium, and Martin, I'm going to see you doing your stand-up after the game. And I think my deal with social media is I'm just excited. And I for some reason, I just want to share it with everybody, And when I'm at the Cardinal ball game or I'm in Daytona Beach, Florida for Bike Week with my big brother Rusty and his son Steven. And, listen, I'm really proud of, them. And, everything I do on social media is I'm always bragging on others. So, every once in a while you're going to get my mouth, but you gotta take it all. You can't get just a little bit of it.
Martin, I think a lot of people misunderstand Kenny. Personally, they all love him, and they all say he's so funny and he's such a comedian. But I tell people, one thing you don't understand about Kenny, I said, he's got a real business sense to him too. He's a real smart kid. He knows how far to take it. He knows what he's doing. And Kenny could stop right now and do nothing and retire. So he was pretty doggone smart with his money also. And
Thank you.
yeah, well, you are. And I want you to, I don't think a lot of people hear that all the time. They, oh, Kenny's funny. Kenny's funny. Yeah, Kenny is funny, but Kenny's really smart too. It worked out good for him. And he's real patient, real loving and caring, passionate person too, you know, just a neat person that they all tell you. But yeah, I mean, that's my story about Kenny. I can go on and on and on, but I try to give him advice that I think, and when I give him this advice, he might look at me like, man, you're boring. You're just too boring.
No. No, hey, Martin, by the way, edit that clip right there and send that to me. Rusty just now bragging on me. I really appreciate that. But no, you know, but one thing I do want to say that I wished a lot of people out there had the guidance that Rusty gave me. Listen, I love my dad, Russ, and we miss him more than life. But it's no secret. I was with Rusty 24/7. You know, I love racing. And, you know, these old hands and Rusty's hands, too, they're pretty messed up because we're fabricators. You know, we can make a speech and we can go to the White House, but we're in that shop and our hands get dirty, you know. So Rusty taught me how to fabricate. I was just in Charlotte, North Carolina yesterday watching Rusty rebuild the transmission on one of those Harley Davidsons. So we're all together now, but you'll get us all. You're going to get everything we got. Kind of like Adam Wainwright, right? He's one of the greatest baseball pitchers of all time. But when we see Adam Wainwright in the dugout, he's like me. He's having a good time.
You know, and what Rusty said reminds me, we did a piece at Fox in their football studio, and I had Terry Bradshaw and Howie Long together because they've worked together for 25 years. And we were kind of joking about Terry being this country bumpkin. And Howie goes, hold on. He said, he is laughing his ass all the way to the bank. He goes, you guys are all getting reeled in. And he said, Terry is a shrewd dude, and he is laughing all the way to the bank. So you're right. Sometimes that laughing and lightheartedness, people are like, don't mistake that. That person, we know Kenny, he's pretty – Missouri frugal, I believe is what he called it.
You got it.
Laughing all the way to the bank.
Yes.
Rusty, do you miss it? Like, do you miss the competition?
Yeah, I do. I don't miss it as much as people think I would miss it. I mean, there were so many things when I was driving that I wanted to do, but I couldn't do because I was driving. My dad, we'd fly to the races and he would go with me quite a bit. And I'd get to the track, we'd land a plane. I was my own pilot. Had a fellow by the name of Bill Brooks, who was our chief pilot, flying with us a lot. And we would land, and I'd say, what are you guys going to do? He said, oh, me and Russ, we're going to go up here. We're going to do this. And I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. And there's everybody saying, I wish I could be a race car driver. But after you're a race car driver for a long, long time, and it gets repetitive, it almost gets boring a little bit. And the stuff that my dad and Bill were doing, I was almost jealous of because they were having some fun times. They were out hunting for old tractors. They were at the military base down at Leavenworth in Kansas. I could go on and on about stuff they'd done. I couldn't do it. So now I can do things like that. I can vacation a little bit more. I can be with my family a little bit more. But I'll tell you, when Martinsville, Virginia comes around or Bristol, Tennessee pops up, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I was behind the wheel and at least making some laps and that stuff. I miss those tracks.
You know, you remind me of another story. Dan Deerdorf, plays in the NFL, Hall of Fame player, and immediately becomes a broadcaster and does football forever. He retired from CBS and he got called, his alma mater was Michigan, and he's doing their games now. And he said, Martin, I hadn't been to a college football game in 45 years. He said, because I was always at a football game Saturday before in the hotel studying for Sunday, either playing or broadcasting. He said, can you imagine that? I haven't been to a college football atmosphere for 45 years. And he finally got that opportunity, to your point about getting to do something once you're out of your normal routine driving the car. Well, how about for both of you guys, most harrowing experience, like where you really were like, oh my God, this is scary. Or do you know it, like it happened so quick? Rusty and then Kenny, like a moment in the track where it was really frightening?
Well, for me, it was definitely 1993. It was at Talladega, Alabama, our fastest racetrack on the circuit. It was the last lap, checkered flag is waving, and I'm coming to the line, and I'm running, I think, third or fourth, I think. And Dale Earnhardt and I, my rival, we get together. I go end over end. The car went up in the air. It flipped 20-some times, and it went across the start-finish line upside down with the roof pointing down, barrel rolling. I think I finished fifth or sixth in that race as the car went upside down across the start-finish line. It ripped the body off. It ripped the motor out of it, broke my left wrist. knocked me out. And when you go back and you watch that race on television, you're going, man, you look at the safety stuff we had back then. I really shouldn't have survived that race, but somehow I survived it. And it was like flying razor blades, the bodies flying off it, metals going everywhere. And I missed all that stuff. And so that was my very worst accident ever. I talk to people every now and then and they'll say, hey, what was your worst wreck? And I'll say Talladega. And they just kind of roll their eyes like, oh yeah, whatever. And I said, well, go to YouTube and look at Rusty Wallace Talladega wreck. They look at it and their eyes get this big and they go, oh my God, I can't believe you're alive. Oh my gosh. I said, yeah, it was a bad one.
Hey, real quick, you always ask me what Rusty taught me. That's another thing Rusty taught me. One of his greatest quotes of all time. You got to remind people they remember what they want to. So, that was a great reminder, Rusty. And I run like 11th in that race, and I flew underneath of you, and that was devastating to me. But I would say the wreck that changed my life, I needed therapy for it, was 1991. I'm going to win the Xfinity Championship, and I'm up in Loudon, New Hampshire, which is a track that Rusty and myself both ran good at. I won the Bud 300 there, but like 8 months later, I go up there and the rear end breaks in my car, and I go flying into turn 3, driver's side, and hit my head close to the wall. And I remember getting out of the race car and the corner worker saying, Kenny, just lay down here. Let's wait for the ambulance to get here. Next thing I knew, I thought I was at home sleeping. And I hear, Kenny, and I open my eyes, and I'm laying on the racetrack in the middle of turns 3 and 4 at Loudon, New Hampshire. And it was devastating to me. I look back on that time and thinking, man, if not for that wreck, I'd be wearing a Xfinity Championship ring. And it's taken me I don't know if I'm over it still, but that was the worst wreck I ever had. I cracked 3 ribs, had a positional vertigo, but we've done our best to overcome and prevail after that one.
Yeah, Kenny's like, Martin, thanks for bringing that up. Let's
yeah. Damn it.
back to therapy. I'll buy you a Bud Light at Applebee's today, and you'll be fine. How about then? Let's more positive. Favorite moment? Can you narrow it down to a favorite race or win or moment of your career?
Wow, favorite moment. I got 2 favorite moments. It had to be my first victory in NASCAR, because that pretty well signaled that I kind of made it. My first victory, that was you know what, Martin, I'm going to change that answer. It's actually my second victory, because my first victory, when I won the race of Bristol, I thought, man, I won the race of Bristol. This is great. But I went home that night and said, it was so hard to get to this point to win this first race. You think of the second one will ever happen? Was that a fluke that I won? Is this real? Is this going to happen again? Or I just get lucky? 3 weeks later, I go to Martinsville, Virginia, and I win again. And I'm like, now I'm in the club. Now I made it. I have won 2 races. I've won 2 races, and now I'm legit, and I won. So that was a huge deal. The second one had to be when I was put in the Hall of Fame. And then watching my son Greg get up there and induct me into the Hall of Fame. It was emotional. It's still emotional thinking about it today. It was a big, big deal for me. And then when I had people like Ned Jarrett came up to me and he said, your life's going to change. I go, why? He said, people are going to look at you different. They're not going to look at you as a competitor. They're not going to think about, oh, I hate this guy. I'm going to talk good about him, or I'm going to talk bad about him. You are now, nobody can say nothing bad because you're in the Hall of Fame. And when I got put in that Hall of Fame, that was just a huge, huge deal.
Yeah. For me, Martin, it was not my 9 Xfinity wins or, polls or things like that. I believe the most exciting moment of my career, there was a couple of them, just like Rusty. Number 1 was 1998, the Bud Shootout in the Cup Series. I had a choice to either push Jimmy Spencer to the win or my big brother Rusty to the win. This is on, all over the world. You go back.
What race was this one now, Kenny?
The Bud Shootout, 1998. Oh,
yeah. Big deal.
And it was a big deal. Remember, brother, you got to remind people because they remember what they want to. So one of the most exciting moments for me was 1998, Daytona Beach, Florida, the Bud Shootout. Rusty Wallace and Kenny Wallace finished 1-2. And our whole family goes to eat that night across the street from the Daytona Speedway. And you look up, and all over national TV, it says Wallace Brothers finished 1-2. And I'm like, damn, we're from Arnold, Missouri, baby. You know?
That was cool.
Yeah,
that was such a great race, because I'll never forget. I'm sitting on the front row, and my rival, Jeff Gordon, is on the inside, and we're both in the front row. And I look at my rear, and Kenny's on my rear bumper. I'm like, oh, well, this is going to be good. I got Kenny pushing me, but I got Gordon trying to, outshift me and get through the gearbox and get those babies going. I'll never forget. I'm outside alongside of him, and I started cracking the throttle, just revving it up. And every time I'd rev it up, he'd look over at me. He would just look like this. I go, run on. He goes, run. And so I'm going, okay, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to crack the throttle. And when he looks at me, I'm going to nail the throttle. I'm going to nail the gas. I'm going to drop the clutch. I'm going to go. And hopefully when he goes like this, and I nail the throttle and go, he's going to be caught off guard. Sure enough, man, I cracked that throttle, and he looked over, and I dropped the clutch, and off I went, and he grabbed that gear shifter, and he's pulling that thing into second gear and tore the transmission out of the car right there at the start-finish line. And Kenny locked on my bumper, and we went on, and we won that doggone race. But, you talk about playing games on the track. I'll never forget, man, when I revved that baby up and he tore that transmission out because I rattled him. That was so cool. And it was one of those fun moments. And look in the mirror and see old Kenny there, that was just great.
Yeah, we were coming off of turn 2 side by side. And Rusty was locked with Jimmy Spencer. At Daytona, it's all about aerodynamics, and they're locked. And I was pushing Rusty so hard off of turn 2 that I was literally lifting the rear of his number 2, the Blue Deuce, the Miller. I was lifting it up, and I was getting ready to spin him out. And I had to start letting off the gas. I remember after the race, Rusty, you said, oh, my God, you were lifting the whole rear of my car. It took forever, but it was about a second. I finally got Rusty, we broke that connection aerodynamically, got away from Jimmy Spencer, and the rest was history. And that was a lot of fun.
We needed a thought bubble as Rusty's driving, look in the rearview mirror, like, oh, it's that pain in the ass Kenny, right?
Oh, now I like him.
Hey, guys, thanks so much for the time. And, it's been great fun for St. Louis, too, to have a rooting interest in NASCAR. And I think it's kind of fun when they look up and see, hey, there's one of our own racing at the big tracks around the country. I know St. Louis has gotten a big kick out of it. Well,
thanks a lot. It's great being on the show today, and thanks for doing this. And, Kenny, I'm glad you're still having fun and still smiling, buddy.
Oh, hey, I'm ready to go to Sturgis with you for Bike Week, man. You've changed my life.
That's right.
We're going to Sturgis. We're going to Crandon, Wisconsin. We're going to have fun.
That's August the 4th. We're heading to Sturgis, South Dakota for be my 20th year in a row of going to Bike Week in Sturgis. It's a great time. And I finally got Kenny going with us.